This is part four of the Florida Seminole Wars Heritage Trail booklet. If you want a copy, I have the website in the description below. It's published by the Florida Department of State, the Florida Heritage Publications of Division of Historical Resources. I had a part in writing it up 10 years ago. So, being the 10th anniversary, I want to go over some of the sites. Plus, I want to add new ones that were not in the original booklet or ones that may be gone, I'm going to mention a site here that's disappeared. Not too many websites like the last part that I had to go over. Mainly, it's covered a lot by Two Egg TV. Dale Cox has done a lot of information, or the historical marker database. Now, first thing is this area of Florida was hit by Hurricane Michael in 2018. Hurricane Michael was a Category 5 hurricane, slammed into Florida. It's something this area of the state has never seen in recent history. Just really wiped out the state. Looking at the satellite photo, there's actually, you can see the brown vegetation that these arrows are pointing to. You can see the swath that the hurricane crossed over in its destruction. So here we are 7 years later at this point, and we are still seeing the effects of the hurricane. Wiped out towns where it hit, like Mexico Beach, but it had a big impact in the interior of the Florida. In fact, there's places in Georgia that I went up where Coal Mountains are in Blakely, Georgia. Still saw quite a lot of damage from the hurricane. 3 months later, people are still without power, and power lines were still down in that town. So, even today, if you go into Blountstown or Marianna, Florida, you can see buildings that look like they are bombed out in World War II. It's actually devastation from the hurricane. This is a marker that was wiped out by the hurricane. Stephen Richards was a translator for the United States during the treaty negotiations with the Treaty of Moultrie Creek, and I think maybe also the Treaty of Payne's Landing. Hired by the Indian Agency in the 1820s. He was eventually fired for financial misdoings or fraudulently uh, charges. This is before Hurricane Michael, this historical marker. I'd like to see that cemetery, but unfortunately, it's on private property. I've never seen the cemetery. You notice the trees in the background. After Hurricane Michael, this is all that's left. In fact, I drove by this location yesterday and it's still there. Notice that all the trees are gone. It was devastating, the damage from that. This small community in northern Calhoun County, Alpha, is, people who are simple farming people don't have much money. They're probably not too concerned with the historical marker, but it'd be nice if that one ever came back. If you go into the town of Bluntstown, Bluntstown is named after Chief John Blunt, who was one of the Creek Seminole chiefs here, who was given a separate reservation on the Apalachicola River according to the Treaty of Moultrie Creek there. In fact, there's a amendment on the treaty where he and I guess six chiefs, six little outholdings on the Apalachicola that they had until they were removed in the 1830s. A very sad, tragic story with him. I've covered it before. This is the old former courthouse of Calhoun County. The new courthouse is across the street, but the old courthouse, I think, is now the sheriff's office. And next to this one is another historical marker. This one is written in both English and Muskogee Creek. Unique because I don't know of any other historical markers written in Muskogee Creek. Now, I had Uh, Had one person who is fluent in the language complain that there's spelling mistakes, but probably close enough that if you speak Muskogee or know Muskogee. Remember when was this made? It says 1989. Okay. So almost, well, was it 46 or 36 years ago? Anyway, um, so pretty interesting. Had a trouble getting a shot of this marker, maybe because of the glare from the sun. Across the street in the modern courthouse is a marker put up last year by the Muskogee Creek Nation from Oklahoma. They actually came here and put this up, which was kind of neat. Um, and that's in Blountstown. There's really not any other historical sites. Um, if you go south of Blountstown, south to Gulf County, and you probably never go by here unless you ever go by the town of Weewahitchka. This is really off the beaten path. It's 4 miles south of Weewahitchka on State Road 71. This historical marker is so remote it was not on the website, the historical marker database. So I just added it on there yesterday. This is a photograph that I took. I was pleasantly surprised that it had not been destroyed from the Hurricane Michael damage. Right down the street there, this is Roberts Cemetery Road. It's a pretty interesting historical cemetery, still an active cemetery down this road. Now, going south from here into what's now Franklin County is what we used to call Fort Gadsden. Now it's called uh, Prospect Bluff, a National Historical Site. This photo is before the hurricane as well. At the entrance, sad thing is that it's been closed since Hurricane Michael, and only open for special occasions, like if there's a tour or if there is the survivors celebration. But let me tell you about this place, and I guess it's closed at this point. They're looking for a caretaker. The nearest town is Apalachicola, so it's very remote here. There, and so I mean, this is 70 miles from Tallahassee. So, and there's pretty much nothing in between after you turn south on Hosford or Bristol to go down here. And of course, this was a tragic story in July of 1816. Um, the fort was ordered to be destroyed by Secretary of War Calhoun and Andrew Jackson, so two naval gunboats were sent up the river. Short story is a hot shot hit the powder magazine and destroyed the fort. There was, uh, they called them Maroons, the black and Native Americans mixed. About 300 were inside the fort. Um, Only 10% of them survived the explosion of the powder magazine. This is overlooking from the bluff. It's called Prospect Bluff, but it's only about 10 feet above the river. And this is the river. It's really the only high point along the river from the mouth of the river. So you can see down there about, gosh, what's about uh, 2 miles down, I think, or a mile and a quarter was where the boat fired the shot. It's almost just pure luck that it even hit the right place. And I've done videos on this before. I'm not going to say too much. This is the old fort, Fort Gadsden in 1818. Andrew Jackson and his army moved into Spanish Florida and established this military fortification, named it Fort Gadsden. These are the earthworks of that. And it remained U.S. territory until Florida became U.S. territory in 1821. So it's like your 18th or 19th century Guantanamo there in Spanish Florida. When the United States left Spanish Florida, they did not surrender this over to the Spanish. Here is a interesting thing. The British built fort, and it was, I guess, not finished, but the Maroons and the Seminoles allies were inside this fortification. It's like a two-story blockhouse, and it was right where you see this ghost image from this kiosk here. Really good interpretive sign. Kind of gives you an idea of what it looked like. What's interesting is after Hurricane Michael, archaeological work even notice that these ditches here, these are actually part of the old fortifications surrounding the area. That blockhouse is in the back behind these trees here. There's some wooden posts on the ground that outline where it was. Very interesting archaeological work held here. Now, every Memorial Day weekend is the kind of a gathering of descendants of the Maroons and the people that were in the fort. Many of them fled to the Bahamas after the explosion. So this is kind of a sign they have in the picnic area. And that's about the only time when it's open. You can just keep checking the newspaper in Tallahassee, but that's like a Saturday, Memorial Day weekend at the end of May. Now, I can't always make that because I usually go to the folk festival in White Springs. So, like one day I went out to this, and then the folk festival the following year. And 4 miles south of this site is a landing that's pretty interesting. This is called Bloody Bluff, or it's also called Dueling Bluff, because it's said in the old times that dueling was held in this location because it was far away from the law enforcement. This is a boat landing. So if you go 4 miles south of the turnoff to Prospect Bluff, Fort Gadsden, you'll see a sign that goes to Bloody Bluff. And I think it's like a forestry area. There's about 4 or 6 primitive campsites, pretty much just pull your vehicle and your boat up and camp here. Pretty interesting. The story was is that the American gunboats waited down at the mouth of the river for 2 weeks before coming up. They had sent a boat up for to search for water, fresh water, and somewhere here they came up, they landed, and they were attacked, and most of the sailors on that boat were killed. There's a this another this is the gauge. This area is frequent flooding. Usually floods in the springtime, between February and April. So you can see this gauge here. Um, Off to the left, there's an interpretive sign right here to Bloody Bluff. In fact, I've gotten the brush and cleaned it off once or twice. It's been a few years since I've been here. I don't know the current condition, if the sign still is here. Um, but anyway, it's certainly off the beaten path, and it's about a 3 mile gravel road to get here off the main highway, which is Highway 65. So that is part of the, okay, that is part of the Seminole War Heritage Trail. There's also a historical marker. I forgot to get a picture of that on St. George Island, which is south of Eastport. You go on a causeway. It's a real resort beach area. Um, and to the west of that is the town of Apalachicola, which there's some buildings constructed in the 1830s and 40s. The Gibson Inn, constructed in 1840. I've stayed there before. There's the Rainey House, I think 1837 or 1838. The Orman House, there's the John Gorey Museum. All of that is dates from the 1830s and 1840s of the time from the Second Seminole War. Just thought of that. Didn't add any pictures of that. So you might want to check it out. One time I stayed in the Gibson Inn. and just toured all the historical sites around in the area. So that's part of your tour today of the Lower Apalachicola River. Next part of the tour is go to Tallahassee. There's several sites around then. And then the part after that we'll call the Big Bend area of Florida, which includes Fanning Springs and areas like that. So that's all for now. This is going to be a continuing series. However long it takes me to go through the whole Seminole War Trail book, there, see, in the map in here, they have six sections on their map. Um, but of course, I'm still on the first section, and here I am on part four. Probably take about, one, two, probably going to be about seven more parts to this because I want to cover some new things that aren't in the original booklet. And I hope that you enjoyed this, and we'll check back later.